when my name was mentioned, one of them looked at me. "Are you the Sackett who killed Bigelow? He wasn't much good with a bottom deal. Nor with a gun, I guess." He was advised. "Unless you're fit to handle his two brothers, you'd best not ride into Montana. They come up by steamboat, and they're waiting for you." "I wasn't planning on staying around," I said. "But if they find me before I leave, they're welcome." "Somebody was wondering if you were kin to Tell Sackett, the Mora gunfighter." "Tell Sackett is my brother, but this is the first I've heard of him gunfighting. Only if he was put to it, he could. He cleaned up Mora. He's talked about in the same breath with Hickok and Hardin. He's a hand with any kind of shooting iron. Back to home, he used to outshoot me sometimes." "Sometimes?" "Sometimes I outshot Tyrell, but I was older than him and done more shooting." We drove our cattle to Gallatin Valley and scattered them on Montana grass, and Nelson Story, whose cattle they were, rode out to camp with the mail. There was a letter for me, the first one I ever got. All through wartime I watched folks getting letters and writing them, and it was a hard thing, a yearning to have mail and receiving none. Got so when mail call came round that I used to walk away and talk with the cook. He had lost his family to a war party of Kiowas out Texas way. This letter that Story brought me from town looked mighty fine, and I turned it in my hand several times, sizing it up and wishing it could speak out. Printing I could read, but writing was all which ways, and I could make nothing of it. Mr. Story, he stopped by and noticed. "Maybe I can help you," he suggested. Shame was upon me. Here I was a grown man and couldn't read enough to get the sense out of a letter. My eyes could make sense of a Cheyenne or Comanche war trail, but reading was something I couldn't handle. Mr. Story, he read that letter to me. Orrin and Tyrell each had them a ranch, and Ma was living at Mora in New Mexico. Tyrell was married to the daughter of a Don, one of those rich Spanish men, and Orrin was in politics and walking a wide path. All I had was a wore-out saddle, 4 pistols, a Winchester carbine, and the clothes I stood up in. Yes, and I had me a knife, an Arkansas toothpick, good for hand-fighting or butchering meat. "Your brothers seem to have done well," Mr. Story said. "I would learn to read if I were you, Tell. You're a good man, and you could go far." So I went horse hunting and wound up making a dicker with an Indian. He had 2 Appaloosa horses, and he dearly wanted a .36 caliber pistol I had, so we settled down to outweight each other. Every boy in Tennessee grows up horse trading, or watching horse trades, and no red Indian was going to outswap me. He was a long, tall Indian with a long, sad face, and he had eyes like an old wore-out hound dog, and I could only talk swap with him when I didn't look him in the eye. Something about that Indian made me want to give him everything I had. However, he had a thirst on, and I had me a jug of fighting whiskey. So I stalled and fixed grub and talked horse and talked hunting and avoided the subject. Upshot of it was, I swapped the .36 pistol, 20 cartridges, an old blanket, and that jug of whiskey for those 2 horses. Only when I took another look at the pack horse, I wasn't sure who had the better of the swap. That letter from home stirred me to moving that way. There's folks who don't hold with women folks smoking, but I was honing to see Ma, to smell her old pipe a-going, and to hear the creak of that old rocker that always spelled home to me. When we boys were growing up, that creak was the sound of comfort to us. It meant home, and it meant Ma, and it meant understanding, and time to time, it meant a belt with a strap. Somehow, Ma always contrived to put a bait of grub on the table, despite drought that often lay upon the hills, or the poor soil of our side-hill farm. And if we came home bare-scratched or with a bullet under our skins, it was Ma who touched up the scratches or probed for the bullet. So I lit a shuck for New Mexico and the folks. That's an expression common down Texas way, for when a man left his camp to walk to a neighbor's, he would dip a corn shuck into the flames to light his path, and he would do the same when he started back. Folks came to speak of anybody who was leaving for somewhere as lighting a shuck. Well, most of my life I'd been lighting a shuck. First, it was hungering for strange country, so I took off down the Natchez Trace for New Orleans. Another time I rode a flatboat downriver to the same place. Had me a time aboard those flatboats. Flatboat men had the name of being tough to handle. Lean and gangling like I was, they'd taken me for a greener. But away back of yonder in the hills, boys take to fighting the way they take to coon dogs or making shine, so I clobbered them good. I'm named for William Tell, whom Pa held in admiration for his arrow shooting and his standing on principle. Speaking of standing, I stand 6 feet and 3 inches in my sock feet, when I have socks, and weigh 180 pounds, most of it crowded into chest and shoulders, muscled arms, and big hands. Back to home, I stood butt of all the funnin' because of my big hands and feet. No Sackett was ever much on the brag. We want folks to leave us alone, and we leave them alone, but when fighting time comes, we stand ready. Back in the mountains, and in the Army, too, I threw every man I tackled at wrestling. Pa raised us on Cornish-style wrestling, and a good bit of his fist work he'd learned from an Englishman prize-fighter. Boys, Pa used to say, avoid conflict and trouble, for enough of it fetches to a man without his asking. But if you are attacked, smite them hip and thigh. Pa was a great man for Bible speaking, but I never could see a mite of sense in striking them hip and thigh. When I had to smite them, I did it on the chin or in the belly. It is a far piece from Montana to New Mexico astride of a horse, but I put together a skimpy outfit and headed west for Virginia City and Alder Gulch. A day or two I worked there, and then pulled out for Jackson's Hole and the Teton Mountains. It came over me I wanted to hear Orrin singing the old songs, the songs our people brought from Wales, or the songs we had from others like us traveling from Ireland, Scotland, and England. Many happy thoughts of my boyhood time were memories of singing around the fire at home. Orrin was always the leader in that, a handsome singing man, the best liked of us all. We held no envy, being proud to call him brother. When I started for New Mexico, the last thing I was hunting was gold or trouble, and usually they come as a pair. Gold is a hard-found thing, and when a man finds it, he's bound to fetch trouble a-keeping it. Seems like a man finds gold only when he ain't hunting it. He picks up a rock to throw at something, and that rock turns out to be mostly gold, or he trips over a ledge and finds himself sitting astride the mother lode. This whole shooting match of a thing started because I was a curious man. There I was, dusting my tail down a south-going trail with no troubles. A time or two I cut Indian sign, but I fought shy of them. Back in my Army days, I heard folks tell of what a bad time the Indians were getting, and some of them, like the Cherokee, who settled down to farming and business, did get a raw deal. But most Indians would ride 100 miles any time to find a good fight, or a chance to steal horses or take a scalp. When the war ended, I joined up to fight the Sioux and the Cheyenne in Dakota after the Little Crow Massacre in Minnesota. The Sioux had moved off to the west, so we chased them, and a couple of times we caught them, or they caught us. Down Texas way, I'd had trouble with the Kiowa, Comanche, Arapaho, and even the Apache, so I had respect for Indians. It was a slow riding time. Of a morning the air was brisk and chill with a hint of frost in the higher altitudes, but the days were warm and lazy, and by night the stars were brighter than a body would believe. There's no grander thing than to ride wild country with time on your hands. So I walked my horses down the backbone of the Rockies, through the Tetons and south to South Pass and on to Brown's Hole, following long grass slopes among the aspen groves, camping in flowered meadows beside chuckling streams, killing only when I needed grub, and listening then to the long echo of my rifle shot. Believe me, I was having me a time. Nothing warned me of trouble to come. Thinking of Orrin's mellow Welsh voice as singing, I came fresh to hear my own voice. So I took a swallow from my canteen, and tipping my head back, I gave out with song. It was Brennan on the Moor, about an Irish highwayman, a song I dearly loved to hear Orrin sing. I didn't get far. A man who plans to sing while he's riding had better reach an understanding with his horse. He should have him a good voice, or a horse with no ear for music. When my voice lifted in song, I felt that cayuse bunch his muscles, so I broke off short. That Appaloosa and me had investigated the capabilities of each other the first couple of times I got up in the saddle, and I proved to him that I could ride. That horse knew a thing or two about bucking and pitching, and I had no notion of proving myself again on